The following is an article that I have published on my Substack page, which is andynowicki.substack.com. Alternative/affirmative right is being mothballed. Thoughts of a former editor. The once flagship site of the dissident right is going into amber. Time to take stock. I have received word that Affirmative Right, formerly Alternative Right, formerly AlternativeRight.com, is being placed into amber. In other words, the site, which has undergone numerous incarnations since its initial emergence upon the scene in 2010, where for several years it represented the flagship venue of the burgeoning movement that came to be known variously as the Alternative Right, the Alt-Right, and the Dissident Right, is being discontinued. The voluminous content of Affirmative/Alternative Right will, I am told, still remain available, excepting, of course, the material that was removed by editor Colin Liddell, such as several articles of mine that Liddell eventually expunged when he came to believe them to be too, quote, conspiratorial in tone. This, to be fair, was well within Liddell's purview, as for the past few years he has been the editor-in-chief of the site. He and I were co-editors from about 2011 through 2017, at which point I readily ceded head editor duties to him, as I had grown exhausted with composing current event-oriented articles, and wished to focus my writer's energies toward what I considered to be more substantial, less ephemeral topics. Initially, several excerpts from my 2017 publication, Meta Pizzagate, were published at Alternative/Affirmative Right, until Liddell seemingly decided a few years later that he had grown to agree with Snopes.com, the DNC, CNN, Stephen Colbert, and much of the establishment press that Pizzagate/Pedogate was naught but Russian disinfo. Liddell had displayed no such sentiments during the time in which I wrote Meta Pizzagate and published those excerpts. We even had, as I recall, a podcast on the subject, with energetic Aussie Richard Wollstonecroft weighing in quite enthusiastically, and Liddell, for his part, not even proclaiming skepticism, much less opposition, towards the notions being expressed. I'm not sure if that podcast is still available now, but I somehow doubt it. Colin Liddell is, of course, allowed to change his mind on this subject as well as any other one, and in his duties as editor is well within his rights to retroactively purge material that he has come to regard as unsound. But it became clear eventually that our being at loggerheads on this matter would prove to be an insurmountable obstacle to our having a working relationship. On a couple of occasions in recent months, Liddell contacted me and tried to dissuade me from disputing the official line on various subjects, including my disinclination to trust NATO's rhetoric regarding events in Russia and Ukraine. He also took issue with me granting interviews with people whom he termed Nazis, and remarked quite pissily that you probably still believe in Pizzagate too. When I told him that yes, I still did believe in the tragic truth of systematic abuse of children by numerous powerful individuals and institutions in the West, as evidenced by confirmed atrocities like the Franklin scandal, the Finders cult, the Dutroux affair, the Casa Pia cover-up, the Presidio daycare abuse scandal, and the Jeffrey Epstein case, among others, he received this news with disgust, informing me that I don't think we'll stay friends if we talk about this stuff. Liddell has always been a somewhat mercurial and at times cantankerous character, but his sudden choice to embrace an entire constellation of mainstream talking points, among them that accepting the reality of Pizzagate/Pedogate makes one a hapless victim of Russian disinfo, that disputing the extraordinarily dodgy reported 2020 U.S. presidential election results renders one a dopey KGB dupe, and that believing NATO incursions into Eastern Europe to be out of order singles one out as a Kremlin shill, took me by surprise. Indeed, Liddell's present seeming insistence that Putin and his crew are every bit the wicked masterminds that DC neocons and neolibs claim them to be, and that Western elites are, in contrast, apparently not really so corrupt after all appearances to the contrary notwithstanding, has left me quite dazed and confused. Liddell and I seldom agreed on all that much when it came to first principles. He is, as I understand it, a pagan with a marked antipathy towards Christianity, while I am a traditionalist Catholic. Nevertheless, for the better part of a decade, we helped to maintain a site that gave voice to a broad cross-section of dissident voices against the prevalent liberal left, woke, increasingly totalitarian-minded Western Lügenpresse. In my estimation, our proudest moment as a duo was when we defiantly restarted the Alternative Right site, albeit at a different web address, after its founder and initial editor-in-chief, Richard Spencer, suddenly and without warning pulled the plug on the original page during the Christmas Day purge in 2013. Amazingly, Spencer believed at that time that the entire alt-right thing had run its course and would soon fade into obscurity. Liddell and I both saw things differently. We sensed, correctly, that the Alternative Right brand was on the rise, that more and more people were identifying with it, and that interest in the movement was growing by leaps, bounds, and sure-footed strides. Of course, I don't think either one of us anticipated that Hillary Clinton would eventually use the term alt-right in a 2016 speech, putting the movement in the mainstream's crosshairs, much less that alt-right would soon thereafter become a tiresomely ubiquitous slur wielded by angry Hillaryites, Lügenpresse scribblers, and various and sundry deep state minions following Trump's stunning presidential victory in 2016. Once the term alt-right became an oft-invoked shibboleth of DC political parlance, of course, Spencer rushed forth to reassume its mantle before promptly botching his credibility beyond repair during his disastrous Hailgate address at the NPI conference in November 2016. Though I am mystified and dismayed by Liddell's recent volte-face on various issues, including but not limited to the ones mentioned above, I am still generally inclined to suspect that, in his own mind anyhow, he is still remaining true to his animating principles, though I am not, at present, sure how he squares those principles by siding with many of the very forces which all along actively wished us harm and worked to censor, deplatform, and otherwise thwart and destroy us. I wish Colin well, but doubt we shall work in tandem on any future projects.